you essentially have a split screen between what it is on the camera and what's on the node view. And for those unfamiliar with what the node view is, it's basically like how your character is organized. And it's very messy. So it's not Cthulhu you're looking at, it's actually just a bunch of nodes over here. So
he says Cthulhu, but that's a very organized node view.
With notepads in there too, so yes. So what these are, these kind of figures, these kind of organized things that's in the node view, is basically how you organize the folders, the different assets of a character. Upper body, so if you create a special special block, special node, sticky node over here that says upper body, you pretty much are able to select her upper body right here in the characters. And if you select the lower body, this is how you could grab it at an instant. Now, one of the things about Toom Boom Harmony, for those who are unfamiliar with this program, is the fact it's one of the key advantage is the fact that it's able to allow you to insert like a soft skeleton in your character's body. What that means is that I'm going to give a quick demonstration. Please don't have a heart attack. So, like, you have with Toom Boom Harmony, you're able to have a lot of soft, basically meshes you could interact with in a character. If you start moving around these kind of handles, they're able to move in a way as if you have like a 3D rig in a character. Now this is super helpful because for a scene, with a lot of action that's going on, you pretty much are able to just tweak, a lot of different line work just within the design itself. So even if whoever designed this character didn't draw those specific lines, you could just use the sliders and tweak it into position. And it's super helpful for stuff that's like very high, very fine in detail as well. So if you do for an eye like this, if you move the sliders here or move the eyebrow to give her expression, you could quickly change her expression almost on the fly, like very fast. So this is one of the main benefits for what this program is able to help. And different studios do it differently. Like Bentobox have their own set of ways, Awesome Inc. have their own set of ways, and then Floyd County also have their own proprietary ways for how they set up as well. And each studio is kind of different. Trained by for the members from Floyd County, they for instance, one of the things they do that's different is that for arms, for different kind of views, if you look at this character, no matter how you rotate this character, it's kind of stayed consistently on one side. And but for the back, you could just flip it to another side. So this is one of the things that they do kind of differently. Now, just to show off the kind of slider again, the benefits of having deformers like this is that you could just tweak all different parts of the characters very well, and adjust all different parts to make the character move around. One of the other things that Toom Boom allows you to do this very well is that you could do cutters so that you can move around basically a piece of artwork inside another, and it's going to automatically cut that in. So this is not kind of like a layering you don't have a situation where her skin is over her eyes. Instead, you kind of program it in so that no matter what, the pupil is going to be cut by the eye with the cutters you're provided. So it's another thing, just for stability purposes, when you have a character from scene to scene to scene, that's super helpful to have. Now, this character is a slightly upper tier, more difficult character in here. So that she has a lot of as you can see, these kind of sliders, deformers going around. And her node view is very big and kind of very, very sprawling. But generally speaking, from the day to day, when you get a character that you're working on, it's going to look like something like this. The pipeline, I'm a setup artist and a rigger, so when I'm rigging a character, what would happen at the beginning of every week is that they would bring you like a turnaround. You know, the design department's going to bring you a turnaround of what this character is going to look like, of the character in pose, and then the various perspective of this character that you have to follow. You're going to start with the front view, and then on my part as a setup artist, I'm just going to have to take what the designers have drawn in, and have to break it apart piece by piece. So like, you know, separate all the asset out, trace over what the designer already have, but break it into movable parts. So it's, for my job, it's kind of like the puppeteer kind of person, to break it down into movable parts that you could then start to rotate, starting to slide over, and then if something needs to be adjusted, you're able to add a deformer so they're able to, you know, twist and turn. And this goes from view to view. Excuse me. And it goes from view to view to view, like you're trying to kind of match it so that for each additional view that you have, you can draw over it, and you're gonna make a new rig over and over and over. Is that?
I have a question about how, so like in the last rig I made, whenever you rotate the body, how are you keeping it to where his body is like stretching with him, like it looks natural?
Stretching as in
so
natural?
Like rotate his torso, I guess?
Yes, sir.
And then, or maybe you could, like how is his stomach not?
I have a question for you. What deformer are you using for the torso? Is it a bone or a curve?
Actually, wait, so that one right there, so that's a deformer?
Yes,
This should be
this is a bone deformer, yes.
Okay.
And it's sourced from the spine, so everything's able to, yes.
So the bone adds an extra anchor, so it's a little more firm in the middle.
It's more stable. What's more, it's not gonna have the danger of distorting the artwork that much.
That's what
Usually with line and envelope deformers, a lot of times they're gonna stretch the artwork, especially if you're not careful around the rim area. So the line work's gonna, by the way, that's a huge no-no in terms of quality control. When the line works start to get all iffy, it means you can't hand it off to animators. It means, because it's a quality control issue, if you don't handle correctly by my stage of the level, by the time you get to them, there's gonna be problems in 1,000 different ways. So that's why stability, like consistency, whether of the torso, of the envelope deformers up here and there, it's super critical. One of the, like, I've touched on, you know, what I do as a setup artist. I translate, it's my job to translate the design department into movable, puppeteerable parts, right? I've explained that. It's also my part of the rigor to add deformers so they have a spine. They're, again, movable, like part of a skeleton, like a puppet. But one of the unspoken areas that you also need to know, you know, as rigor, is to be kind of like a techie. You understand everything that you're doing, quality control what you're doing before you pass off, you know, like just don't be a dick, you know, like before passing off to the animators. And the thing is, also be a techie in the sense that whatever goes wrong, whatever question that they will bounce back to you, you're able to have a workaround solution or an explanation that's able to quickly get it solved. So for this character, you know, like view by view by view, so I'm gonna keep go down this character's rig to show off some of the more things that you're gonna expect once you get a character that you're working on. So.
While he's pulling it up, I just wanted to bring up, because I also rig, I think everyone will find it very fun when you like get to the point in rigging where you're dreaming about the rig. And you're like, oh my god, I could just add that note in, and then that would fix everything. And you wake up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat.
Yes.
To try it.
It is, because to be a rigger, sometimes some of the questions are so difficult, but it's in the most it's pathetic way possible. Let me put it this way: you might have like this little crinkle over here, you know, where her fold is going over, like, and you have to find a way to work around, because if you want this to rotate, it doesn't really rotate quite well. You need to cover, you know, to keep the Z depths in front of this character, but at the same time rotatable, and at the same time have this piece of clothing drape over. Now, it might sound easy, especially, you know, like, but to get it work perfectly, it's gonna go insane. Like you will try so many things, like essentially like throwing gums at a wall, and nothing answers your prayers kind of that moment. So you're gonna have to eventually just if nothing works, try to come up with like a bubblegum solution to patch it up to make it, like work around it and have still have it work. So that's the thing. Yeah.
Well, I just had a quick question. How often is it between the animators and the rigger? Do y'all go between a character rig?
Usually,
is it like consistent, or go ahead?
I
Sorry.
think we'll actually have two different answers for this, but you should go.
sure, okay, yeah, like usually from both Bentobox as well as the other studios, what you do is that after like the rigging department finish a rig, they would throw it to some of their best key animators to play around, just to error-proof it. So they would do a lot of exaggerated poses, see if the character bends this way, really stress test the rig. See if anything, and if they try to do the eye, see if the artwork pops or everything's center-lined and stuff like that, just for, like stability, quality control for these characters. And once that works, they feel safe enough to pass on to tweeners, animators, and for key poses and stuff.
So I think Jack's answer really applies if you're in a big studio with a rigging department, and sometimes you're in a studio with no rigging department, and you are the riggers, you learn to rig. I would say a lot of times it's take the shot at value and what it needs and don't over-engineer it. Because sometimes you may not need to rig it at all, and you might need to rig just like one arm or one something, and then time becomes like a big part of it, so yeah.
This character is a perfect example of that. So like originally this character, for most of the main cast of this character, every single limb actually has an envelope deformer. For like every joint, every limb, like elbow, arms, like it all has one. Until a lot of their key animators basically said, yeah, we don't need that. Because in order to have one of those, have them have an exaggerated action-filled shot, they're just gonna let the animator redraw another limb, like just entirely limb in action for that pop, like for the dramatic pop and stuff like that. So as like Thee said, sometimes you might overdo your part, almost like a overprotective nanny. But all the animators want to do, they just want to play around in sandbox. So yeah, that's one of the things to definitely pay attention to. I'm almost at the end of the demonstration for this characters, but I want to show eventually, like after do a usual full turnaround for one of the main characters, what else do you need to do for like to set up a good rig? And
We got a question up here.
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you create, like as the rigger, do you create the swaps that are needed? Like, do you ever have to draw as the rigger in terms of like, you have to create for different mouth swaps, or do they just?
Yes, for me, like a lot of the time. See, here's the thing, like unless we're talking about super AAA studios, a lot of the animation studios, they're actually not that big. They're usually about 20 to 50 people, like even at the height of production, about 50, 60 people.
Yeah.
So like the thing is that a lot of the time, one of the reasons, like a lot of people with great portfolios say, be a journalist and push your skills and kind of sell your portfolio almost like a sample platter, is because you never know when these things will come handy. And for me, I mentioned I'm both a setup artist and also a rigger, because I pretty much just merged these two kind of departments into one as well. And by extension, I also do all the mouse shapes. So this is what I'm gonna show right now. So happy mouse, sad mouse, like for all the perspectives. So for each view, there's gonna be like 3 sets. Happy, neutral, sad, and stuff like that. They're gonna have to do all of that. And here's the thing, you're gonna have to do all of that within a week too. So I know, each day, like you're gonna be spending half a day basically just getting all of those mouse. And it's gonna feel like kind of existential at times, but it's really gonna kind of steal, kind of just like after you know that you could do it, you're gonna feel like you're flexing. Because all the other people who hasn't gone through the ringer, through the ninja trial, they're gonna look at you as like, you could do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing. So it pays to kind of just like, develop a good habit and just able to do that.
I wanted to say something as an animator and rigger too, is that like, you'll get a rig and then you'll be like, I can't make the rig fit this, and like, don't worry about that. You can always draw new drawings into the rig. And that's where knowing the rig helps, because then you're not just breaking the rig when you're drawing new stuff in there. So it's good to get to know rigging in that way, and don't be afraid to draw new stuff with a rigged puppet, because that's really gonna push it to not just being a puppet. Yeah?
I was actually going to ask, because I'm much more into the 2D drawing than I am into the rigging. Like, how common is it to fill in poses with just, like, drawing it to fill it in instead of doing the rig? Like,
That's allowed. If it's a quick act, like a snap, like a just,
Yeah.
you know, pull back, anticipate, it just.
because I know it's done a lot for, like, cost effectiveness and speed, but, like, you know, is there, like, a point when, like, you know, you're doing too much, like, oh, don't draw that, just. make
If the
it rig.
quality is able to justify it, you're golden.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would definitely lean on to your, you know, animation principles when you're dealing with a rig because that's gonna make it not feel stiff.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. One of the I mentioned before that sometimes the animators, riggers could be doing too much, and just you know with this show itself, a lot of the like our key animators in the animation department, they just told us like no, let animators develop a good habit. If they really need to redraw a limb just for that setup and action or give it more of a perspective, it's up to them to have the initiative to do that.
This is a good time to bring up practice drawing hands. You'll draw so many new hands in a rig. They'll never have enough hands.
Yeah, it's a good like almost like ninja mental fortitude to have because when you're in the industry itself, like once you go through the door in that, the boss will always ask you to like draw a new hand, This is prop, draw a new hand. Just like it's gonna feel existential. Like yeah, I keep using that word, but it's something that you know it's part of the day to day.
You okay, we do more questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna ask off of the hands substitution,
Mhm.
do you have, like, does the studio give you a sheet with like a specific number of hands that you need to draw for, or do you in general just kind of draw the same amount of hands per rig that you do?
They do actually, and in order to you know have things work, we actually build in a set amount of hand just for you know like safety. Usually about it's a small set, it's nothing big. Sometimes usually it's going to be a like a perspective rotation, and probably one with a slight grip. But the reason that a lot of the key animators really encourage other animators, you know, under their department to do their own separate hand is because they want it to look natural. Like every frame, every shot, they want it to be specific to that shot, and nobody could contradict that. And unfortunately, you know, one of the things about the effect of uncanny valley is that not a lot of people might know what some you know exotic animal would look like. Everybody have hands, you know. Everybody know what a hand looks like in perspective. So if people want to really nitpick, if it's not done right, it's going to weaken the integrity of your project really fast. That's why you know, like I say, it's a good habit to keep practicing it because if it's not working, people above you will bounce it back to you. That makes sense. And aside from that, that's pretty much it. I give demonstration of like a complex rig and a more simple rig, you know, with the turnaround character.
Do you have any tips that you can demo? Any like quick settings, anything like that?
Setting, well, like a lot of these really do take a lot of the time to do, but here's how we kind of set up our mouth. We divide the mouths into separate objects, so they are actually from the same, like they're actually technically the same drawing. Like, so you have the overlay line and then, you know, color and then underlay, right? For the different part of the mouth, it's actually the same drawing. This way they could change together, but we could still rearrange the Z depth on the node view. So we could actually layer more stuff in between there, do a stuff like a bubble gum between the tongue and stuff like that, if we layer it correctly and stuff like that.
Do you want to show them the drawing camera view or drawing view? Like the layer and overlayer?
Yes.
And you can, this might be a good one to turn on the advanced layers.
Yeah.
If you guys aren't using advanced layers yet, take note of this. So it's in preferences. I think it's advanced.
So like exposure sheet?
No, it's like advanced, yeah. And then just click on
All
advanced.
5.
It's the first one.
Click all 5.
There you go. This is a pretty, I mean, you guys actually seem more tenured than I thought. I thought there would be like college students in here.
No, there should be like, is there a confirmation button on here?
It is, but the screen kind of cuts it off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's too small.
not say.
Is it advanced display?
Right. It's kind of.
This is the worst case scenario of this presentation. Please Google this. Don't follow us.
So
let's nix this. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Was that the end of your demo?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Do you guys have questions for us?
Yes. We usually have like over 15 minutes of
Yeah, would you like to do Q&A?
Q&A. Yes.
Yeah, I'll bring a mic around if anyone has.
We could sit over there.
Hey y'all, I'm Solomon. I just graduated from SCAD this past June. And so I was just curious, how did y'all become a Toom Boom ambassador in general? I met Mystic, I was out for a little bit.
I also wonder how I became a Toom Boom ambassador. So I kind of feel like so their criteria was mainly being connected to your community and using the software a lot in a wide variety. So I was using it in motion design, series animation, commercial. I was also using it in games. And then, we did a show called Jelly Ben and Pogo, which really gave some representation to Southeast Asian communities. So really sticking to work that you're passionate about and doing a lot of it and collaborating, I think will get you there. And it's also just apply to stuff. You never know what will take you. Oh, the ambassador program also gives you a year-long license with updates. So look into it. Applications are already open. So if you Google Toom Boom Ambassador Program 2025, you can already apply.
What are the elements that make a really good rigging portfolio? I'm always a bit flummoxed because rigging is not something you can put in a flat book, so to speak. It's not something that you can make a video out of very easily. So what elements do you look for in a good rigging presentation?
I was pretty lucky in the sense that I did have worked in several relatively large studios that has been churning out TV productions out. So I'm able to since I'm usually one or two riggers out there, I was able to just grab a scene with a lot of the characters that I have rigged before, and then in action poses doing an action scene, and then just an overlay claiming that I have built all of those rigs, and see how versatile they are. They're and if the action shot have them in perspective or do punchbacks and stuff like that. It's a good way to demonstrate the range of what your rigs are able to do. Aside from that, the reason I kind of hesitate to do almost the examples that I pulled earlier is because a lot of studios do have proprietary kind of ways in which they rig characters. Now, we might not necessarily have the rights to kind of share these kind of information beyond, so that's why I would kind of cautious going too deep into the demonstration if it's from the studio itself. Now, if it's our personal project, feel free to go ahead. Do a rig with envelope deformers everywhere, or just very tricky. Harmony's now able to do a lot of the to put perspective in there, and then facial slider, expression slider in there as well. So if you want to build it in there as well, go ahead to just show what you're capable of. But one thing, I would mention is, don't focus on, if you don't necessarily have the permission to show from the studio itself, err outside caution. That's it.
Hi there. First off, thank you for making time to do this. It's been really informative. So my question is about ZDepth and exporting it out of an MLW. Just to give you a little bit of context, I comped on a show a little while back where the assets we would get for comp were exported from Harmony through a multi-layer write node, and it seemed to like to delete the Z-depth information that the animators were using to actually do the animation. So a lot of times we would suddenly get, if they animated with Z-depth, then the layering would not work. And we would suddenly have a nightmare of like having to mask parts of things that would not have needed masking in the actual Toon Boom file.
How many times do you recommend your animators to do Z-depths? Like for instance, if you need to tuck an asset back.
I was just a compositor.
I see.
I'm just a workaday person. I am not in charge of that.
I see. Because in order to answer that, I also need to know how you guys set up almost in 3D, because there is a way to kind of like turn like there's a perspective view in Toon Boom, so you can actually switch around to see which assets truly are like in there. So you kind of break away the 2D setup into that perspective view. That for me, that's almost like a miracle, because you're able to figure out, because a lot of the times, I know a lot of my friends are compositors in Toon Boom. This happens because a lot of animators get a little too happy with the tucking things back in the Z-depth, so it's hit way back or way too front. To such an extent, if you look on the Z, like usually within studios, you only do 0.01 or 0.001. That's how much you're able to do in like the Z-depth. But sometimes I look over, it's like 1. I would like have a heart attack. Exactly. So like one way to figure out what is really causing that is to go to the perspective view and just rotate around. It does give you the option to just kind of like move the camera and free rotate.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
How y'all doing? My name is Trey. Just graduated from here, and I've been working on learning how to do rigs since the beginning of this year. And one of the things that I have issues with working with, I think you may have mentioned it slightly, is doing turnarounds so they rotate. Specifically, my issues with them is the tweening between them, because they tend to, for the tweens, they tend to get distorted.
I see.
While some actions happen, I was wondering, is there any ways I could do to work on that and make those tweens better?
There is, and it's very specific. There are several basically fundamental rules it's good to have. Before you start to like do the different views, create a center line that bisects their characters, no matter what. And not only that, but have a general like circle around where your torso is, just so that however you rotate this character across all different views, you're almost faking this character as if he's a 3D model. It's always going to be rotated along this center line no matter what. This is going to, for stability purposes, it means if you set up a pivot, like wherever you set up, it's going to stay consistent for all the rest of the views. Not only that, but for all the rest of the views in that same torso area, you know, like this is good. And in order for, you know, a lot of these, like from view to view to view, for these kind of things to not pop around or to tween incorrectly, is to, instead of, I don't know, how do you set up pivots on there? Do the pivots drift from tween to tween?
I think, be more specific.
So before I set up the rotation points for each of the limbs, you know, for each one of the views, what we do actually is we start to draw like a circle, like a green circle, where each one of these limbs are. And then for view to view to view, we actually keep that in mind. So when we finally drag the pivot point on there using the transformation tool, we go to the transformation like view over there, and then drag the pivot into position. That's going to stay, you know, for all the different kind of views. And by the time, if you do that, like early on during the setup process, you shouldn't have that problem later.
Okay.
No problem.
So, oh, hello. Hi, thanks for giving the time and being out here. So you mentioned that you were doing like rigs in Toon Boom and that you didn't really, like that's not what you had studied for T. What kind of resources did you find that helped you pick up like a new skill sort of on the job? And is there any that you would recommend?
Oh yeah, this is definitely specific to being in a smaller studio that gives you the room to learn. Because if I had gone into a major studio and did that, I don't even know what would happen. But YouTube, a lot of like specific YouTube rigging channels, and if you're able to bear through and watch them, then I definitely think you may actually enjoy rigging, which I ended up doing. And the forums, the Toom Boom Harmony forums are actually a lot of problem-solving answers in there. Like I'll just have like these mystery questions that someone in 2006 answered.
And the forums are super helpful because like if you do like their Q&A, like they actually don't have time to answer that. Because a lot of the time within the developers, they're gonna be trouble solving like crazy all the time. So like if you find them on the forum, perfect.
And then my last resource is probably the Toom Boom Harmony Discord. They actually have a Discord that you can ask people that both work in the company and industry professionals.
Thank you.
Is the creation process of game elements, like how different is that from animating and you just using a rig in general? Like, or is it really that different?
Are you asking about asset creation, like props?
Yeah, more so because the examples you showed were like, you know, the actual examples of the games. So how much of that was like particularly done in Toom Boom?
So we actually use Toom Boom probably in a way they don't like. We use it as an export engine. We used it because they have a really fast PNG sequence export. So we mass produced vector assets and then sent them to Spine that way. These workarounds, they haunt you at night and then you'll do them. This was also particularly great if the IP you're working on was a series at first in Harmony, so we didn't have to recreate the assets in another program. We kept it in Toom Boom and exported from Toom Boom.
Hello, how do you typically handle smear frames? Because some smear frames are like a big swoosh of color, but some other smear frames are just like the limb but multiple times. Do you find it easier to like copy and paste an asset and like erase some bits, or do you hand draw out the assets for smears? If you handle smear frames.
Smear, as in like a quick like blurry action post? Yeah, you would just sometimes just draw the limb, like a fresh limb or on a fresh layer if you need to. Just what I've said earlier that if your quality, like the end result justifies it, by all means. Like it's always like the end result, if it looks good enough, that's for many, like even very cautious and conservative like animation director, they're like, oh, you got something wrong here.
I also want to say, it depends on the style and the production you're going for. Sometimes it's really cartoony and sometimes it's a little more like a true motion blur. So it depends. And then if you have a good lead or art director that can help guide you as well, if you're unsure, then it's never a problem to ask.
Thank you.
When you're doing an element like, when you're doing like an element like a character with a tail or characters that have more rubber hose quality, how exactly would you say you go about making the bones? Do you just give the character a lot of bones, or is there like a way to just add like a,
I'm having traumatic flashbacks. We have laundromat characters on a dinosaur show.
Oh,
and we have brontosauruses with huge flapping tails. So the answer might actually be surprising. To keep the rigs very simple, like they're able to do what they do, but if you, like for instance, neck, sometimes it's just one long, like line deformer or a series of line deformers, and a tail, same thing as well. And then if the animators need to do anything else, well,
they can just draw it in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have too many tails.
So I just wanted to, I'm trying to figure out how to rig a character and I was like, am I doing this wrong?
if anyone has seen Jelly Ben and Pogo, she's a sea monster. She's all tail.
Do they ever, I just say, do they ever give you like, okay, like do you ever know beforehand what the rig is gonna, like do they give you the animatic, I guess, so you can see what you need to build this thing to be able to do? Or
Yeah,
does
usually.
that come later?
Usually, luckily, at least for my part in the Bentobox and you know like other studios, yeah, it would be like they would have, even if it's a very rough animatic, there's still one. And like I've seen some extremely rough ones as if they're on tissue papers, like very bare minimum that you can't even tell like the 3D space behind the speaking characters. But that they will still have an audio track overlay, and then with the animatic just to do timing, like see you know like punchlines and the dialogue works and stuff like that. And by the time they got to you, of course you're gonna have to interpret how much you're gonna have to do based on that. But I don't know if that's for your field as well.
No, I think that was mainly you.
And just you know, like as a basic rule of thumb, always be aware of what this shows. Kind of like the anatomy of the various characters for this show is going to be, because I mentioned before, you know, like I worked on the pilot with dinosaurs, you know, like sometimes with brontosaurus with long neck and swaying tails and stuff like that, or T-Rex is always with, you know, like tiny arms. But but you know, if your show has quadrupeds, focus on that. That's going to be, you know, before you start figuring out what the node view is going to be, already think about that. Same thing with if a show is going to have a lot of characters where, you know, they have huge, you know, like full, you know, like Johnny Bravo arms and stuff like that. Think about how much, because then there's more demand on that. They're able to do like probably more exaggerated poses and stuff like that. So keep that, you know, like in mind before you translate it to mechanics.
I do also want to push on there that don't limit your shot. If you're an animator, don't limit your shot to the rig you have. Try to tackle it like a rough animator first, and then see how the rig can help you, because that's what the rig should do. And then if you need something more, maybe you can get tack with the rigging department, or you can maybe add a little bit yourself.
Yeah, they could actually, like, if they're nice and not being a dick that day, they could actually build it for you, like a little, like a gadget specifically for your shot.
Because my first animation test, I completely froze on it because I was like, this rig is too much. I don't know how to fully show off this rig when that wasn't the point of the rig. It was to help me. I should have done that.
Are there any more questions? All right. How do you go about animating with a rig? Like, what are your process? What is the process that you think of when you're animating with a rig?
For me, that I learned the hard way is go with roughs first. Get that approved by whoever's your lead. Maybe even just get feedback from peers. And then keys with the rig. And that's when, if you think you're gonna need new drawings, go ahead and just put them in. And then it would be breakdowns. You don't need some of the new, I was gonna say, okay, never mind. Actually, if you do need new drawings, new hands, go ahead and just do them in the breakdown. Like, keep getting feedback at each part, keys, breakdown, and then tween should be pretty easy, as long as you feel like, you know your timing is right. Don't do motion tweens. Motion tweens are bad. They're not bad, but definitely don't let them be like your leader. Like, break away from the motion tweens, add to the curve, change the timing, and yeah.
Yeah, and also understand if your show does allow for a lot of twins, because sometimes shows don't mind if it's just like animate by 2 frames and stuff like that. So understand the limitations, but at the same time, I would totally agree with what he said about doing roughs first. Timing is what sells usually a punchline or a joke or like the drama of the dialogue. So if that's right, everything else should follow. A lot of the other animators, like one fatal mistake to make is that they overcommit, they try to block out rough poses, But the thing is, if the timing is incorrect, you're gonna have to kind of redo that all over, so yeah.
Do you do like all of the twings and then the key poses in stop motion and don't touch the motion frames at all, or?
Oh, it depends on the shot. Like if it's a really simple motion, then lean on the motion twins. But if there's gonna be like limbs flying around, there's like 3D and it's kind of a mixture of do what serves the shot best, I'd say.
Okay, thank you.
Here.
My caution with motion twins is it makes the timing really like even and slow and mechanical, and we kind of want to avoid that. Sometimes putting things on ones helps too.
Sorry, just for clarification, when you say roughs, do you like block it in with the rig, or like roughs like you're drawing in?
Don't block it. Well, I guess you can block them with the rig, but
Just draw that in.
yeah,
Even if it's just very, very rough, like if you have an anatomical, like with a facial expression, and maybe a perspective indicator, or even like an arrow to sell like the punch and stuff like that. I mean, like it could be. The key thing is timing and the drama. If you're authentic to the emotion they're trying to sell in that thing, yeah, go with that.
the rough passes, I agree, is definitely for timing and motion. And then, yeah, when you start blocking with your rigs, that's when you start probably more so breaking the rig to make it fit. Like you roughed in the face looking down a bit more, maybe the rig doesn't accommodate that, so now you have to start breaking it and pushing it.
So it's that kind of referencing when you mentioned your first animation test, you like blocked it in with the rig first?
I blocked it in with the rig first. And then I sat there paralyzed.
I think we're down,
Thank you.
down to our last question. Anybody has any last questions? Sweet, I think we're down to our none question.
So everybody, thank you so much for coming. It was fantastic to have you guys here. And thanks to our presenters for being such a... And also thanks to our sponsor, Toom Boom, who should totally sponsor us more. And everybody, thank you for coming to our ASIFA panel, like our festival. This is the last one. I hope you guys enjoyed everything. We enjoyed putting stuff up as much as we enjoyed you guys coming as well too. So thank you guys so much. Bye. Well, we're at the end of the time, so thank you. Bye bye.
That's for guaranteed stability. You know why I said each limb for each you have to put the ring rings in there? Is because now you know what you need to drag, where you need to drag. Okay, then you'll be so you'll be a
So y'all are on
you drag that.
What?
Inside of that, just a copy of animators from like what we do before we start animating. That makes me fun. They're probably using AI and like animators and beautiful. It's probably gonna see, that's a good thing, and that's it. Like, you have like no experience whatsoever. Might be out of luck. You have like, there's a wilderness way, but they're strong. And it's like what a lot of little projects that like the anticipation one. So it's like even then you need to have the like whether I don't know if you're you can say no. We also create a layer for project. Like so the reason we do that is because we want to from that. So if we really want to that same thing for the hand. Like all the not necessarily the hand. Even though, like, I mentioned it, or during the process, a lot of the time riggers would overshoot the envelope of the key animators. What is interesting though, we do end up building redundant, like stuff that, like a switch on the knife. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Your presentation was dope.
Thanks.
So if you know that
I didn't notice this last time.
You didn't?
we're gonna have to.
Oh, super dope, super dope. Man, I'm like, you should have brought your game to the festival. You know where you like have like the
Oh my God.
spots with it.
I
That was
missed
so dope. Yeah.
I missed like most of the festival.
Oh, for real? Me too. I only had this panel. last
Hello,
time.
Adrian. I'm so glad you could make
Great
it.
experience.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go to the party tomorrow?
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking. I forget. I was looking. I think it's like
I think.
1 o'clock.
What is the party?
Where are you guys going?
I have no idea yet. We're gonna go check it out.
Here's the case. I can grab that from outside.
You're joining the dinner?
Was it?
Oh, sorry. I just thought, because you were right next to Ginger, she was like, oh, like, ASIFA staff are gonna do like a dinner after this. See ya. No, we'll do. Oh, I actually looked really close here. I was like, maybe